integrity, no. I thought we would be just fine, and I thought your heart was like mine. But let me find out, you've been going around throwing shots, running clouds. Come on, man, tryna block my blessings, but no need for comparisons. What's from me won't be from me.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, y'all. I see y'all in the chat room this morning. Good morning, brother Chuck Diesel. Bryce, good morning. Tyler, good morning. Sister Nat, hey. Shay, good morning, y'all. Courtney, SLP, good morning.
Tell them I need my money right now. Promise the juice, they stole out my crown. Sorry to tell you, I know my value. I'm gonna recoup, yeah. Don't waste my loyalty.
Good morning.
I let you in back then because I couldn't see, but now it's clear you ain't ever been true to me. My intuition ain't ever lied. I had to
Randy
leave.
Rubble, good morning. Happy Friday. Good morning from Eastern Tennessee. Good morning to you. Hey, y'all Walker, good morning, brother. Good morning. Well, I couldn't see you in a minute. Ricky Woods, good morning.
Trying to block my blessing.
That, hey, tell him I need my coffee right now. Hey, shout out to that A for that remix. Mark S, good morning to you. Sister Dragon Daddy, Brenda Johnson, good morning, y'all.
But pay me what you owe me for, I make what you've been saying about me true. Tell them I need my money right now. Promise that you stay stole out my crown.
Robert, good morning. Roller Dragon, good morning. Hey, I like that. Good morning, Mr. Bear.
I know my value.
Alicia, good morning. Melody, good morning to you.
Don't waste my
Michael 147, I appreciate you. Everybody loves this shirt. It's like, I don't even know what color it is, but it's like a maroon, like blended. If you see it up close, it looks like it's like shiny. But I love this shirt. It's my favorite shirt.
Told her start it up. I don't want to see it from your eyes.
Brother Diallo, Tiger, good morning, y'all. Susan, good morning. Terry, good morning, y'all. Anna Hart, what's going on, sister?
Playing fat. Nah, I ain't playing
fat. Brother Latif, what's going on, Latif? Rosie B, good morning. Barbara, Lily, good morning. I would say it's lavender, Lily. Maybe it's another color. I'm not sure. Grand rising to you, Sunny, right? Hey, good morning. Thank you.
And you know I got the socks on.
Thank you, we love you.
Yeah, I get my bop on.
Ear Hustler, good morning, good morning.
Y'all, I got this one. She know I'm the top dog. I know she a hot one, but Lindsay's on the feet. And you know I got the socks on. She said, with my high sub, she ain't with no knockoffs. You know we gon' pop off. Uber getting dropped off. Kicking in the door, we ain't knock on it. Ice on your
make sure I say good morning to her later on. Y'all say good morning, Mom and Daddy. Love y'all. Y'all got that one out.
Like I'm Hulk Hogan, put on R&B, then I hit her with the slow stroking.
Melanie, yes, rose blush color. Absolutely, that's like, that's definitely it. Thank you for
that. She got hot one. She know I'm
Brittany, good morning.
I know she a hot one, but
DB404, good morning, y'all. Terry Stacey, good morning. Afraid not. I see you. Todd, what's going on? Good morning to you. Shout out the artist, working man in the chat room right now. Chuck Diesel. Brother Chuck, what's going on? This is my hype man right here, y'all. Shout out to Brother Chuck.
Double D's dunking no.
Truth the Dragon. Oh, she has a joke for us. Bubba, in class this morning, there was a student with the name of Prince. The Snow White joke went down the storm. He says she's telling me to tell his mates the joke.
While I got topped off, she was taking too long. Now I'm feeling
Truth the Dragon, you playing it. Okay. Let me see, Miss Sophia. Good morning, Miss Sophia.
I know she got hot one, but Lindsay's on the feet, and you know I got the socks on.
Barbara, good morning, y'all. Benjamin Dixon, what's going on, sir? Good morning to you.
Hey, man. Hey, I want to give a shout out to some folks who are watching over at In the Mix Salon here in a glorious city called Atlanta, Georgia. Turn the music back up, man. It's a bop. That's all I wanted to say.
I can't stand Ben. And of course, it was at the end of the song, so we're going to bop on again and we're going to go into a different song. Bop on. Shout out to the men in the salon. I see y'all taking this out this morning. Listen, I'm gonna come get my beard done. All right, y'all hit me up. DJ X3C on Instagram. DJ X3C on Instagram. Now I need that good place.
My old chick. She said you ain't playing fair, playing fair, playing fair. No, I ain't playing fair, playing fair, playing fair. No, I ain't playing fair. Ask her why she staying there.
And as y'all see, my music is holding stable, y'all. I erased everything on this damn MacBook. It ain't put nothing on here, but non-copyright music.
Let me know when Brother Mac's ready. We'll come back with a segment. Okay, let's hit it, y'all.
We're working good, so y'all just keep your fingers crossed. I hope that it stays like this, okay?
Don't take it personal. I ain't lying.
She ain't with no knock off. See them, we gon' pop off. Uber getting dropped off. Kicking in the door, we ain't knock on it. Ice on your beat, and you know it got the bop to it. Running up the streams like a stock market. They ain't with no beat, tell them stop talking. Rock a goatee.
All right, y'all. It's time for the time.
I hit her with the slow stroking. Then I told her she could hop in it.
All right, y'all.
Starting up next, y'all. Welcome back to the screen. My brother from another mother.
Avatar from another avatar.
Avatar from another avatar. Ben, why you not on camera, bro? What's going on?
Man, listen, man. I am out in the streets, man. I am out here doing the work on the ground. I've been talking with employees from Amazon, and really just kind of an organizing effort here locally. It's amazing what you find when you go out of your own front door and get to work. And so I'm in the streets, man, and it's kind of hard. You know, you can't be camera ready when you're out here sweaty. You know what I mean? So that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. But good morning to you, DJ Exclusive and Brother Mac. How y'all doing this morning?
Oh, good. Bubba, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, sir. And Dr. Mac, thank you so much. I got my calendar yesterday. I would show it to y'all, but it's in the car because I was on the way out when I got the mail out yesterday, and I forgot to bring it in the house last night.
Damn it, Bubba, get your priorities.
Love it.
Will you?
Huh?
Get your priorities straight.
I know, man. It's be doing everything. I have to take so much myself, my wallet, the keys, the phone, AirPods. There's so much to take.
Man, you get to
and I just leave my mind in the car.
Hey,
man. What's going on, my son?
Brother, I want to answer that question. You know, when you stated, she has to be tired. You know, again, this is, with Bubba bringing up the calendar. I just want to remind folks that when I was in those streets as chief servant for the Seattle King County branch of the NAACP, those battles were long, they were hard, and history can either be a dead history or it can be a live history. And so when I think about what kept me going, it was the words of the great Frederick Douglass. And so I'm sure that Sister Turner understands these words, but I want all of us to understand these words because they're so prophetic, the words that came from Brother Frederick Douglass. And he says this. He said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what people would quietly submit to, and you have found the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue until those very people resist with either words or blows or both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. So as long as we, end quote, so as long as we endure and we quietly submit to what the status quo, either in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or both, as long as we quietly submit to them, that oppression will continue, and it has continued. So as Brother Frederick says, they must be resisted. Power will never concede. They will never play fair. And regardless of how they play, we must be chameleon-like and adjust to those rules. Now, I ain't one to say that I would rather get in the pig pen, but trust and believe, I never wear white to the fight.
Come on,
I'm
man.
willing to get as dirty and as nasty as need be without hurting or being, or wronging somebody with it. But to trust and believe, I'm never taking a feather to a gunfight. It just ain't what I do. So no matter how nasty we have to be and how long we have to be that way to fight for our rights, as Brother Frederick says, as long as we quietly submit to it, they have now found just how much oppression they can put upon us. So I'm saying, I gotta believe that Sister Turner understands this. We must understand this about her. She ain't built like the average Negro.
Right.
So please, whatever you do, do not feel sorry for this sister.
Oh, come on.
Yes, Brother Mac. Yes, Brother Mac.
Come on.
And she's going to bring that fight, as we must all. And for those of our brothers and sisters who ain't built for the fight,
come on.
Okay, just don't get in my damn way, because I don't want to mess you up.
Come on, let's interpret this. Bro, Mac, let's interpret this, if you would, through the movie 300. Now, I am not, my memory is not what it used to be. You probably remember the movie more than anyone else. So I'm going to play the role of some of the situations we're facing and see if you could throw me a line from the movie that will help contextualize it in that way. Do you think we could do that?
I'll be paraphrasing. So, I certainly.
That's close enough. A paraphrase works just good when it comes in the Mac-isms that you give us. So let's get a Mac version of the 300, because here's a situation we're facing, right? We've got people in power who are not equipped to fight the kind of white supremacy that we saw on January 6th. I don't feel that we got the kind of leadership that's equipped to handle the kind of enemies that we're facing.
Well, trust and believe that when I go to that fight with my shield, I will return from that fight either with my shield or on my shield.
Come on, somebody! James, you hear that? And for those of you who are willing to sell us out for some coins, for some luxuries, for some vanity, for whatever it is that was your temptation, whatever your price was, may you live forever. Oops, I guess I did it myself, didn't I?
Yeah, there's not a more insulting statement that you could give to a true warrior than one that should live forever. So, coming from the words of Charles Hamilton Houston, you should be willing to die on your feet than to live on your knees, because who wants to live forever? And I pray God that there's an enemy out there worthy enough to give me a glorious death.
Come on, somebody. See, that's why I'm not worried about Sister Turner. The reason I'm not worried about Sister Turner, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that she's a once more into the fray kind of sister. Well, y'all mess with her and she'll go right back into it. Go ahead, Bro Mac.
When you go back to the movie 300, as Leonidas told Xerxes, the Spartan woman is far more worthy. He'd rather go into battle with her than the peons that he has in his army. And Sister Turner boldly represents that of a strong Black woman worthy of going into battle. So it ain't one that we need to look at with any reservations about what has happened to her. She is built for this battle. Trust and believe that.
Let's put it like this. I don't know who Jim Clyburn thinks he is, but I know who Nina Turner is. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know who she is for anybody else, but if I'm following anybody, it sure as hell ain't Jim Clyburn. It's Nina Turner. So my lady, my queen, what you need us to do, because it's time out for this Black Miss Leadership class that has been out here shucking and jiving in their own way. The Democratic Party has done good for them. How's it done for your district? I've been driving through some, we really need to shine a light on how these districts are actually looking underneath the surface of the veneer of blackness in the form of the Black Miss Leadership class.
Yeah, without question, and we just got to continue that type of battle. But the moment that we begin to get comfortable, and what we have to always understand is that when we have had progress, which is why I love the fact of this progressive movement, that progress has always been led by the youth. It's always been a part of the youth. And so today, that old established power structure, the Clintons, the Bidens, the Clyburns, I want to, we would love to say thank you for bringing us thus far. But it is time for that baton to go into different hands, because trust and believe the issues that we are facing today are issues that maybe you don't look at, or maybe you've accepted. In the case of what Brother Frederick says, find out what we would quietly submit to. And there's been a generation of us who have quietly submitted to police brutality. Well, this new generation is saying,
we ain't doing it.
We don't need no water. Let the Burn, baby. Burn.
Let me drop this on y'all before we go to our first guest. I want people to forever get into the lexicon of your consciousness that liberation is excellence. Black liberation is black excellence. Yeah. Y'all been looking in the wrong direction for the kind of leadership that you need. It ain't in the Jim Clyburns, it's in the Nina Turners.
Yeah, and trust and believe. And trust and believe, Brother Dixon and Bubba. When I was on them streets, I said to my then wife many a times, trust and believe, sister, if I do not return, do not shed tears for me or feel like it was a foolish move. This is what I'm built for. This is what brings value to my life. Now, do I want to be a martyr? No. I want to live to see my children, possibly grandchildren, would love to see that. But again, the days of me being on my knees to beg you for what my ancestors have fought and died for, them fucking days are over with, player. We rolling up in here. And if trust and believe, if black folk gonna be uncomfortable, this was my rhetoric to Seattle. If black folk gonna be uncomfortable, everybody in the Emerald City gonna be uncomfortable.
Come on, man. Come on. You're not going to be, you don't do, ooh, see, we got a guest. We're going to come back to the guest, but I just want to dovetail what you said. Longevity has its place.
Yes.
But we ain't concerned about that now.
No,
we just going to do God's will. I want to bring to the screen our guest, Adele Stan. She is the director for Right Wing Watch. And this is an organization that is a part of the People for the American Way, if I'm not mistaken. But they're an organization that they keep an eye on the rabid right-wing ridiculousness of the evangelical church in a way that gives us the ability to just press play on a clip and realize we're dealing with some wild people. Right. Adele, thank you for joining me. How are you this morning?
I'm well, and it's good to be with you, Benjamin. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure's mine.
Yeah. So Right Wing Watch, the way we would describe ourselves, Benjamin, is that we're like a multimedia, multi-platform research project. And I know that sounds very impressive, but actually everybody has a Twitter account and a Facebook account. You're all multi-platform.
Yeah.
But we're a department of People for the American Way, which was founded by, as you know, probably Norman Lear and Barbara Jordan back in 1981. And what prompted that? The election of Ronald Reagan by the religious right.
Yeah. Well, funny how all this connects together. And the move of the evangelical church back in the 80s, the consolidation between, if you really think about the evangelical movement, if they were supposed to get behind anybody, it should have been Jimmy Carter, the president who taught Sunday school while he was in the White House. I mean, if religion is a thing that you care about, then Jimmy Carter would have been the person for the evangelicals, but they went with Ronald Reagan. And you say that was the impetus behind the creation of the People for the American Way.
Well, it was part of it. It was the rise of the religious right and the fear of, and rightly so, of reduced rights for various people in various communities, and freedom of speech was, continues to be a huge issue in jurisdictions led by the religious right. You will see that, of course, in this whole boogeyman of critical race theory that has become a big cause célèbre, right, on the right. Yeah.
Brother Mac, I want to get you in the conversation. Help enhance it for me.
Well, sister, and thank you so much for joining us. So if you could, from the viewpoint of the religious right, paint what they would see as their perfect world.
Oh, well. So the religious, when we talk about the religious right, that's like a huge umbrella of term, right? You've got all different kinds of denominations and belief systems, and they don't always all jive, right? However, if you want to go to the kind of the common threads, what you would have is, I think at this point, very restricted voting rights that make it very hard for not just black people, but all working class people who do shift work. It would be really hard to vote. Women would not have autonomy over their bodies. The state will tell them what they have to do with their bodies in terms of procreation. LGBTQ folk will be pushed back into the shadows because, once again, their relationships would be considered outlawed. You have, we're just really up against it. I mean, one of the things that's, that is because we're up against so much in the wake of this insurrection, right? I mean, there's abortion is about to be overturned, in the Supreme Court, or it could be. We're hoping that it won't be, but there's all these states that are led by Republican legislatures, which are all right wing, if not religious right. They're all right wing. They've been designing these laws in such a way that they will require a Supreme Court test. So,
Sister Adele, let me ask this question. So, based on
sure.
what you just described, voter restriction, restriction on women's choice, being pro-choice, anti-gay. Is it safe to say that a perfect world for the religious right would be a world dominated and ruled by white men?
By white Christian men.
Oh, okay.
But Christianity as defined.
And their perception of what Christianity is, of course, which is,
And so give us their perception of what Christianity is.
Well, Christianity is to them a fiercely patriarchal set of rules by which people live. Women should be second to their husbands in the home. That is preached in many of these religious right circles. It also is all about, quote unquote, not involving the government in helping people. Right? That should be the realm of charities as far as they're concerned. Of course, their charities might be funded by the government to provide those services.
Funny how those tax breaks work, right? Funny how those tax breaks work.
Isn't it something? Yes. Yeah. And so it's a very, it is not the Jesus of agape love, right? This is this is a muscular Jesus who's gonna tell you you're doing it wrong, and he's gonna punish you if you don't do it right. And
Sister Adele, you got to put one pin there. He's only going to punish the sins that they're not doing, right?
Right.
He's only going to punish
which they claim to not be doing, right?
Exactly. Or they claim to not. You remember Jimmy Swaggart? I've sinned before God.
Oh, my goodness.
Jimmy Swaggart, when he got caught up with the sex worker, right? They condemn it, but they engage in it. I digress. We have some clips. And I want us to, and this is why we connected, because we play your clips all the time, because this is our world. And I was like, we absolutely should just have you all on. This is the first clip. Is a self-proclaimed prophet, Hank Kuhnerman, calls forth election audits to across the nation to reveal to the earth. This is the part that the election was stolen. Run the clip, Dwayne.
We speak this over Arizona. We bind any outside interference. We rebuke any attempts of the enemy to try to put their hand into the audits of Arizona. We call forth other states and we say, you come to your place of order. You come to your place of alignment. We declare that there shall be other audits that shall begin to arise. We call it forth in Pennsylvania. We call it forth in Georgia. We call it forth in New Hampshire. We call it forth in Wisconsin and Michigan. We call it forth even in California. God, we are praying right now that other states we begin to be moved upon by the Spirit of truth to continue to bring the truth to light, to expose every lie, to expose every deceit, and to reveal to the earth that the election was in fact stolen, and that the righteous hand of God shall see to it that the justice of you, the Almighty God, will be served. we call forth for the righteous hand of God to bring restoration and order. And the one who legally, rightfully, constitutionally won the election, we call them forth in their place of authority, in their seat of authority.
Now I'm listening to the music, and I think I recognize the song as "Miracle Worker," "Waymaker." I come from the church, so I know this pattern, this intonation, this soul that they're trying to imitate. I saw that black brother in the background, and I'm wondering why he's there. and I realized
there's always one or two.
well, no, you got to understand that he's there because his church can't afford to pay him. But the white church down the road can, and so
that is really interesting.
Oh no,
That's
absolutely.
Really
no, you have to understand, like we're out there trying to survive as musicians. And anyway, I digress. The point is like this is madness that's going on in this stage. And here's the thing, and I'd like for you to speak to this. There is a layer of when it comes to the black liberation gospel, that is, when it came to Jeremiah Wright, these same people were saying separation of church and state.
Oh, yes.
But when it comes to Donald Trump or anything else that fits their agenda, they're saying, look, they have the flag. They're preaching in the pulpit about their politics. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. So basically they're saying, I mean, they truly have advanced this idea that Donald Trump was God's anointed. God's anointed to be president of the United States. And that's how they sort of get around all of his personal foibles, the sexual harassment, perhaps assault that he's been part of and all of that. Because if God anointed him, then he's just like King Cyrus, who was not a believer and who was a terrible person. But he liberated the Jews, right, from bondage. So that's the game here. Now, this thing is going on in many, many layers, right? And we can watch a guy like Hank Kunneman and say, well, that's just one guy in one church, and why are we elevating him or his message? Because across the country, Benjamin, there are hundreds of Hank Kunnemans. That's right. And Dave Daubenmeyers and Greg Locke's, all of these people. And then you have the whole QAnon infusion in some of the dominionist influencers. And that gets really way out there. But each of these people have substantial numbers of followers, thousands of followers. And if they can advance this, narrative, which confirms the fears and biases of their congregations. I mean, we all have biases. I'm not saying these people have more than say me, but mine are different, right? But nonetheless, it confirms these biases. And that keeps people coming back to church because they believe there's a miracle about to happen that is going to restore America to its former white power control, because they're really afraid of people who are not white.
I want to say something to all the people who attend churches like the Church of Paula White Supremacist. I need you to leave. I need you to leave. If you're white and you want to stay there, do what you want to do, but stop giving black money to those types of churches because they are not preaching the liberation gospel. They are preaching the oppression gospel. I just want to be clear. Now, you mentioned, I got one more clip, and then because you mentioned Greg Locke. Do we have that Greg Locke clip, David, that you mentioned? Any of his clips? Because Greg Locke is talk to us about Greg Locke in particular, because he called you all out while he was preaching one time. He said, I know right-wing watch is watching, but I don't care.
Greg Locke is really, at this point, advancing the idea of violence. He's talking about a civil war. He's talking about divisions within the country that can only be settled by violence, as far as he's concerned. And when that's coming from your pulpit, that's there are folk who are gonna believe him, forgive the pun, lock, stock, and barrel, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, these folks, many of them are armed as well. And why are they so armed because they fear some horde of, of brown people, black people, and Antifa. I mean, I have heard.
I don't know if you know, Adele. I'm the president and CEO of Antifa. It's on my Facebook profile. But go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Antifa thing is just huge, right? On the right. Anyway,
let's listen to his clip if you don't mind, because I think that the best way to know Greg Locke is to watch Greg Locke. Let's take a look at that clip, David, Dwayne.
Somebody told me the other day, you're a media whore. Better than being a devil's whore. Better than being Kamala Harris's whore. By the way, the word whore is a King James word. Don't get too nervous. My wife's about to pass out in the sawdust, praise God. I ain't playing her stupid games no more. You picked the wrong one, Jack. I didn't beg you to come to church. You showed up because you wanted to. We might need our security team and the Proud Boys to show up every weekend with the crazy stuff we about to go into. We let them all show up. Starting a January 6th insurrection commission. So when they finally get back to Congress, because they take a whole month off because we pay the salaries of them wicked people. They sit around with their toes in the sand without a mask and get all mad at us, and we show up at church without one, right? When they come back in September, they got this council, which they're going to try to prosecute everybody that had something to do with the insurrection. What? Have you lost your mind? I think they have forgotten the theology of redneckism in America. If we wanted an insurrection, you wouldn't be able to stop us if we had one. That was not an insurrection. That was not an insurrection. That was a peaceful protest.
Okay. See,
the only people that were insurrecting was Nancy Pelosi telling the Capitol Police to stand down and freely letting people come up in the Capitol building. That was the insurrection. What they ought to do is arrest her for the rest of her life. Try that wicked Jezebel for treason.
This is too much. Sister Adele, how long can you stay with us this morning? Because there's so much. I know
I'd love
you
to
have
hang around if you have time.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Because I need Brother Mac to help me with this one, because I don't want to come off with a level of hubris that my height does not suggest I should warrant. So Brother Mac, this man said redneck theology. He ain't met no black Spartans yet. He ain't met the NFAC, because I can't say their name on air. The not effing around crew. He ain't met these brothers out in these streets on the Harley Davidson clubs that are riding around, black Harley Davidson clubs. He don't really. That's not my lane, Brother Mac. Could you handle that for me?
Sister Adele, the first thing that popped into my mind as I was listening to him, and you so adequately described him as a person who would promote, basically a civil war. It immediately popped into my mind the way that the FBI dealt with members of the Black Panther Party who weren't promoting a civil war, who were just simply promoting the rights of black folks to equality in this country. And we saw what happened to members of the party like Fred Hampton. So please try to explain to me how the U.S. government deals with the rhetoric of, again, even if you go into the situation, being a life member of the NAACP, I understood that our 501c3 status was based on being bipartisan. So I couldn't, as the former president, endorse anybody, because it would certainly violate that. And now we're talking about the separation of church and state. So when you look at the fact that these are not-for-profit organizations, and yet they push the type of rhetoric that they do, up to and including insurrection, civil war, violence of that nature. How is the federal government looking at an individual like this?
Well, so these guys get away with a lot, right? they get away with a lot of this kind of rhetoric because of the First Amendment protections of free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, all of that. So they do get away with a lot, but they do somehow maintain their nonprofit tax-exempt status as religious organizations, which would not be available to them for like all their real estate and everything, were they a nonprofit political organization such as People for the American Way. So there's a structural problem for dealing with this kind of thing, and then there has been the institutional biases against really investigating domestic terrorist groups. And domestic terrorism in general. Now, I'm not calling Greg Locke a domestic terrorist. However, he is well, here's where I was about to go. He's a stochastic terrorist. Stochastic terrorism is exactly what you hear coming from these pulpits all over right-wing America, which is you don't tell anybody go out to kill somebody or plant a bomb or anything. You just make them believe that these people are not just bad. They are possessed of demons. And if you truly believe in demonology and demons, if you were coming in contact with a demon, wouldn't you want to off them? So what you do is you prompt these fears and ideas into everybody's mind, and the most unhinged are likely to pick them up and act on them.
Now, Sister Adele, I got to ask this question, and I want to, and going back to the first clip where we saw the brother up there and you phrased it as though, the brother needs to get paid. Well, speaking from a religious standpoint.
I think Benjamin said that, yeah.
That would be our Judas, right? Dirty piece of silver.
Oh, come on, don't do the minister music like that.
Don't be so hard on the musicians.
My minister. Listen. Listen. There was a bait and switch. I just have to say that there was a period where these churches really did seem as though that they were going to be on the same page as we were. And then when Barack Obama got elected, they lost their damn minds.
They did lose their minds.
Look, Ben, trust and believe. If I was the organist, if I was that brother standing there and I was hearing the rhetoric came from his mouth,
I would have had to walk away.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, I digress. So Sister Adele, I mean, given that we seeing this brother on and this right wing, are there black preachers who you would relate to this religious right segment?
Sure.
Are there blacks?
Yeah, of course. There's a few notables. There is a guy named Jesse Peterson. I don't know if he has a church, but he does.
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yes.
Oh, I know him well. I read it to him one time. Yeah.
I would have loved to have overheard that conversation.
It didn't go well for me. It honestly didn't go well for me because I was not prepared for the level of absurdity that I was going to encounter. Quite
exactly.
honestly,
It's crazy.
It caught me off guard because I did not expect a black man, Brother Mac, to just say that Donald Trump was our white savior, and that threw me off my game. To be honest with you, but yeah, that's
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not surprised. And then there is E.W. Jackson, who at one time, I don't know if he still does, claimed the title of bishop in his denomination, and I wish I could recall exactly which denomination he is in. There was Bishop Harry Jackson, who led the anti-gay crusade. Jesse Lee Peterson seems to be driven mostly by misogyny, hatred of women. And E.W. Jackson he has political ambitions, right? He was the major party nominee, the Republican nominee for lieutenant governor in 2013 when he ran on the ticket with Ken Cuccinelli, who, had a Homeland Security position in the Trump administration and who was just not just fiercely anti-immigration, but to the extent of cruelty.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for the body of work that your group performs, very incredibly enlightening. And so from that standpoint, how is your body of work being received by folks who just did not understand? Because trust and believe, before I teamed with Ben, I really paid no attention or even had an idea of this religious right wing. So how is the American public at whole accepting your body of work? And then based on what you all are able to expose, is there any fear that or retaliation? Because again, when Locke talks about his affiliation with the Proud Boys or promoting the Proud Boys,
right,
is there any fear that you and members of your organization have, or threats that you all have received as a result of this incredible, insightful look into this group?
Well, not from Locke specifically, but we, as any organization that does any kind of research on the right, we receive our share of threatening messages. That does happen. However, I mean, in terms of what you're talking about being received by the general public, so we try to aim. We have two very rather specific targets. One is the general public, and one is political journalists, because political journalism, has this like almost obsession with the one side says this, the other side says that, right? All the both siderism stuff, and there is but now that the right is in charge of the Republican Party fully, there's a kind of at least when Trump first came in, there was a lack of understanding of what that meant, how they roll, and so we do a fair number of like report explainers on things. We did one on QAnon when that first came out. We just did one on the cops involved in the insurrection, the ones who were fighting the cops who were at the select committee hearing a couple weeks ago. So we're trying to hit these two targets. And what happens with the pickup? We get a fair amount of pickup from mainstream media. We get quoted in the New York Times and Washington Post, and sometimes folks pick up our stuff without attribution. We're just happy to get it out there, though we really do like attribution.
Well, that's what we do around here.
I hear you, and I'm grateful to you. But the other thing is, the clips also get picked up by late night talk show hosts, Samantha Bee. Trevor Noah.
I think you guys you're leaving out a really important, if I could be so bold, I believe you're leaving out an important demographic that you all should absolutely be targeting, but I would change the terminology from targeting to organizing. And that's the Black church, because there has been a confusion in the sense of Black pastors being reluctant to stand on the Black liberation philosophy, which is a progressive philosophy. They have been reluctant to do so out of fear of their 501c3 getting revoked, as opposed to Greg Locke in his pulpit saying that we can go to civil war. Had Black churches said that back when Barack Obama was elected, then they would have been at our doorstep. So I think the real partnership is organizing with the Black church, but that's just me.
Well, if I may, Benjamin, People for the American Way has a robust program with African American ministers, led by Leslie Watson Wilson, and so. So there is there's a fair amount of organizing around policy issues on that. Now, in terms of bringing to that discussion the condemnation, you're right, it's complicated because of the C3s. So people.
Well, how do we balance it? How do we give Black pastors the confidence of Greg Locke? How do we give Black pastors the confidence to speak about social justice issues with the same confidence that Greg Locke is preaching Donald Trumpism?
Yeah, you mean in terms of being flat out political? Flat out political.
I mean, because isn't that what Greg, like, how does Greg Locke get away with that, but Jeremiah Wright got shut down?
Well, I think we all know how, I mean, first of all, black preachers know they're likely to be targeted with these kind of administrative, or at least they feel that way based on history, right? With all kinds of administrative infractions. It's the same thing like, the way, the whole literacy, quote unquote, literacy tests worked. It's like, create a technicality and then hang somebody on it. So I think that when we talk about systemic racism, and, I don't pretend to be any kind of an expert on that, but this is the kind of stuff that's sort of baked into the cake, right? And we really need to be looking at each and every, as a movement, we need to be looking at each and every institution of government, to make sure they're dealing fairly. But you need an internal communications process to say, okay.
Oh, yeah. There it is. That's what the right does really well.
They do. And on the left, we tend to get very siloed by issue areas, policy issues or interests. I
tell you what, let's do this, Sister Adele, because Brother Mac has a question. I want to make sure he gets that question in. But can you stay with us over a quick break? Because I think we need to flesh this out. This is as best a time as any, because I don't know when we can get you back. But I want to change the narrative here, because It is because of white supremacy that Greg Locke can get away with this, but Jeremiah Wright couldn't get away with explaining why white imperialism is directly connected to the oppression we see in the black community. DJ Exclusive, I hope you're somewhere nearby. Take us to a quick break. We have more video from Right Wing Watch coming up after this break. And Brother Mac, I'm going to let you get your question in as soon as we get back from the break. The Benjamin Dixon Show, like it or not, on the clock, back after this.
Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. More is coming up next, y'all. Good morning again. Make sure you stay tuned. And while we're waiting, we'll go ahead and get our new patron members read off. New patrons for today, for yesterday, should I say, we have David and Rona S. Also, Nico S. Our new Twitch subscribers, we have A Difficult Truth, Gambling Blues, who resubscribed, Butternut Squash 3281, who resubscribed, Sis Q Cat, cheered 100 bits, and Semilin the Con Dragon gifted a subscription. Oh, you know what? That might help if I slide this over to Orpheus Alcon. So shout out again to y'all, man. Appreciate everyone. Make sure if you want to, patreon.com/likeitordnot, patreon.com/likeitordnot, y'all. Make sure you stay tuned. More show coming up next.
Yeah, feeling on your buns, licks in the blunt. I got ash in my cup, all these girls showing up, but I don't give a fuck, cause you the one I want, girl, you the one I want. Girl, you the one I want. Hey, come and show me love, you wanna be a rider. And I'm feeling high, I can't deny it. She a bad John named Maya. And when I seen her, man, she looked fire. She got me
Griffin, right. I guess my turntables did break you. Too bad to break something else since everything is working good today.
So what she doing? She like nada. So she just chilling out, they get up in the shower. I said, alright, cool, I'ma be there in an hour. I just wanna live like a Kuna Matata. I ain't got no time for no baby mama drama. All about my comments, my letters, no tomatoes.
Just give it up. I'm not your girl and I never will be. Don't call me up. Don't waste your time, cause I'll be your enemy. If you want love, look somewhere else. Heal for nothing. Just give it up. I'm not your girl, cause I only love me. Don't get me wrong.
Y'all is dumb. Left too. Good morning again, Mom and Daddy. I hope y'all watching. I know y'all watching somewhere. Good morning, y'all.
To care for yourself.
Care KFZ, good morning. Dawn, good morning. Randy, good morning. Rain Dussault, good morning. Shout out to my sister, Savage Sweetheart, who's in the building. Good morning.
If you want a problem, I'll give you a problem, alright? If you want love, just give it up. You got the wrong girl. You got the wrong, you got the wrong, you got the wrong girl, girl. You got the wrong, you got the wrong, you got the wrong girl, girl. This is my time. I'm feeling good, rule every party. See how I shine. When I'm alone, nothing can stop me. You should go out, meet someone else, someone who gets you. Don't stick around, I'm pretty wild, I don't do monotony. Don't get me wrong, you and I could have fun together when I feel done. With having fun on my own, it's better to care for yourself, not rely on somebody else. So don't get me wrong, I'm just finding love. Just walk away, 'cause I can
Wayne, let me know when.
hanging out with you tonight. Don't look my way. If you want a problem, I'll give you a problem, alright?
All right, y'all. It's time for Like It or Not to begin. Make sure that you stay tuned, y'all. Like It or Not, it's about to go down. Let's get it. Let's go.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone.
Good morning and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth.
Like it or not.
Ooh,
You know,
y'all
it's
messed
funny.
that up so bad. Ooh, I'm
It's
gonna
all
get
right.
y'all.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. We're missing Sister Rebecca. She's not here today, then that's okay. Everybody got to take a little bit of time. I really wish we did have her today, because if anybody knows the Evangelique Church, it would be Rebecca, because she's really steeped in the Haitian church as much as I'm steeped in the missionary Baptist and the non-denominational churches. And Bubba, matter of fact, you come from the same kind of background, right?
Baptist church growing up in the country. It depends, but yeah, been all over religion.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Brother Mac, we know you at the 18-hole Baptist church. We got, the little baby Jesus.
Yeah, Sister Adele, we don't want the research going on 18-hole Baptists.
Oh.
But listen, Sister,
We might have to be looking into that.
Yes. Brother Mac, you got it, because you had a question before we went to break. You got it.
Yeah. So Sister Adele, I just want a simple yes or no to this, and then the real question will come up. But just based on your research, do you find that the religious right is racist?
Yes.
Okay, so based on that, you made a statement, well, I'm not an expert. So trust and believe. When it comes to racism in this country, and based on your research and your body of work, you are indeed an expert, like it or not.
Oh, indeed. Well, but can I, being a researcher, there's always like a caveat or an explanation. I'm not speaking, I'm not tarring every single person who has landed in a religious right church. What I'm talking about is the leadership, starting with Tony Perkins who is at the helm of the Family Research Council, who had
I call him Pretty Tony. I call him Pretty Tony because
did you know that he had bought he had bought a mailing list
Yes.
from David Duke?
That's how he got started.
A long time ago. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
But then, Sister Dale, help me with that. If the leadership of the church promotes racism, wouldn't that stand to reason that the flock also buys into that ideology, which now makes them racist? And so but part of the reason I ask you that is because when I was in my body of work within the framework of the NAACP, it was hard for me to hear white folks call racism, even when they see it. And so when you say it, but I'm not an expert, it kind of gave me that feeling. And we'll be very frank here. It gave me that kind of feeling that, is it difficult for you as a white woman to call it racist when you see it?
it is not at this point in my life, you know. You know, a lot of what I have had to address in my own journey is, you know, the institutional racism that I was raised with. I'm a baby boomer, and I am not the only, obviously the only kind of working class white person who believed a lot of this crap. And, you know, if all your images of Black people are negative, that's what you wind up with. Now, you do wind up with an internal bias to believe these things. And if you are not educated as to why you're thinking what you're thinking or seeing things through a particular lens, then, you know, it's what your mama believes, it's what your grandparents believed, and is good enough for you, right? I mean, I have been really blessed with, with very patient Black people around me who have decided I was a worthy project and taught me when I was doing a microaggression or when I was being patronizing or all that kind of stuff. And, I especially want to give a shout out to my sister, Moretta Short, with whom I went to school in New Jersey. And she went on to become the head of New Jersey Now, the National Organization for Women. But anyway, you know, I have people who were patient with me. I have people who gave me a lot of education that I was not entitled to their energy in doing that, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah,
I'm sure you do.
I certainly appreciate, you sharing it with it, because see, when we talk about why racism continues in this country, it's because people don't have the wherewithal to have these types of courageous conversations. So I certainly want to thank you for giving us insight into your experience of evolution into our experience and being courageous enough to address it. So thank you. But like, here's the question I want to ask you in regards to your research. Did you find that the religious right got an injection of courageousness based on Trump? Or was it always going like that and we just never knew it?
Well, I think, and this is a great question, Mac. I really appreciate this question because I think when we get back to the question of, of the origins of the religious right, there was always an anti-Black strain running through it, right? I mean, Jerry Falwell, the founder of the Moral Majority, if you want to call him that, he actually
they were neither moral nor the majority.
And he wasn't really the founder either. It was a couple of Catholic guys, and I come
Paul
from that
Wayward.
church. I come from
Paul
Wayward,
yeah, and another guy. I actually done quite a bit of research on this. I wrote a book about it called "God Is Not a Republican." But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
I know that book.
Oh, you do? That's me. I wrote that.
Put it all together.
Yeah, that's me.
Hi, good to meet you.
Pleasure's mine.
But anyway,
when I asked the question, I'm keeping in mind that if you go back to December 24th, 1865, when that little group in Pulaski, Tennessee met, keep in mind, the KKK, keep in mind that at their meetings, they had a cross burning. So I always understood that you had this element of racism embodied within religion. But again, given that it was always there, did the election of Trump, just anyway, you got the question.
Well, we should, for the listeners' sake, I shouldn't have interrupted you, your question, but you were asking me, if Trump emboldened, and yes, what Trump did was unleash the dogs of racism, right? They had been leashed. They weren't gone. They were leashed so that they could maintain a certain amount of control by people who control things. But Trump unleashed them by smashing all the norms, saying, smearing various groups of people or smearing anybody who would who would challenge him. And knowing that, a whole bunch of religious right leaders met with Trump in Trump Tower during that campaign. And of course, they were trying to figure out, wrestling with how could they support him when he was obviously not religious and had all of these philandering issues and perhaps business issues and all this kind of stuff.
2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians, right? Yeah, which, well, that was when he was asked what his favorite Bible verse was. So they decided he was the guy. They decided he was their King Cyrus. And I remember James Dobson, who was the founder of an organization called now I'm losing it. It's Family something.
Family Research Council.
No, well, they were an outgrowth of his organization, right? Maybe it's not Family something, but you know what I mean, right? It's a big organization based, I believe, in Colorado Springs. Anyway, he said that he was certain that Trump was a baby Christian. In other words, Trump was coming to Jesus. And if you want to look at a terrific book on this, my friend and colleague Sarah Posner wrote a book called Unholy, which was about the religious right alliance with Donald J. Trump. And she's done copious. She's the woman who got us the infamous quote from Steve Bannon that he was building a platform for the alt-right. So she's a great reporter, and it's a really terrific book.
No, she's a dope reporter for sure. Mac, I want you to go ahead, Brother Mac.
Let me get this one question so Dr. King made the statement, there comes a time when a man's silence is criminal. So based on that, have you heard or have seen any efforts between, let's call them Christians of humanity, this agape love type of Christianity? Mm-hmm. Have you heard of or seen any efforts between them and the religious right to sit down and have a discussion and debate the concepts of agape love or Christianity?
Oh my! I love that question. I love it.
I have not. I think that among Christians of the agape, what we're calling the agape love Christians, I think that there is a sense that what's the point, right? You're not going to change anybody's minds. And back in the day, there were attempts to come to some kind of a consensus on abortion. And there was just no way, there was no path for that. Now, I'm not saying that these sorts of discussions would not be useful, because if anything else, it sharpens the distinctions, I think, more than than bridges the gap. And I think that as with what Benjamin was saying earlier, shifting the narrative, right? We need to have these narratives and to shift, and to do that, you need to sharpen the distinctions. Yeah.
And I asked that question in relation to Dr. King because, again, if we remember, his letter from a Birmingham jail was to members of the clergy who claimed to be God-loving, God-fearing people, yet wanted to silence him. So I, and again, with that being criminal, I think that when those who embrace the true concepts of Christianity, and when I say agape love, I'm saying, understanding that agape love is a oneness of humanity, and all aspects of religion should embrace that concept. But when those who profess to love God and be righteous can sit idly by and knowing that there's a sect of religion that preaches this type of hate and they remain silent for whatever reason, I find them to be criminal. I find them to be complicit, which is why Dr. King was so courageous to write that letter from Birmingham against members, men and women of the cloth, who wanted to be silent or silent him.
That's right. And as you mentioned, Dr. King, Brother Mac, I'm thinking also of the, now this one quote, and maybe Brother Mac, you can help me with this because from the historical perspective, I've heard it accredited to two different leaders, both Dr. King and Malcolm X, that it was Sunday morning at noon, that it was the most segregated hour in the country. And Sister Adele, as I hear you speaking about the historical roots of white supremacy that is present inside of the evangelical church, I can't help but think of the fact that they used to lynch us on Saturday night and go to Sunday school on Sunday morning.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's Professor Anthea Butler, I believe she's at Princeton University. I forgot her actual distinct title, but she studies religion and philosophy. As she said, it wasn't just that they would have service around lynching us. And so while this thing has
Anthea knows how to phrase things.
Yeah, so it's while this thing has transformed, it is still the same root of white supremacy, which is why, Brother Mac, I'll let you get this next question, but it's why Paula White blocked me on Twitter, because I actually, let's call a thing. It's Paula White supremacist, and this is the type of religion we're dealing with. Go ahead, Brother Mike.
So, Sister Adele, and again, your body of research being as vast as it is, who would you list as just the top three of impactful members of the religious right wing?
Ooh, well, I know we don't have time for a long digression because it's kind of complicated, right? The same people who listen to...
Sister Adele, I don't mean it, but this is a very important conversation. I will take as much time as you have because the digression might be what we need. So we're in your hands.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and this, I got to say, on the Right Wing Watch team, the real expert is one of my colleagues, Peter Montgomery, on the religious, the very granular details of how the religious right is formed. But you have in the Paula White type, and I would put her way up there because of her access to power. And, of course, she's quite wealthy as well.
Thank you, T.D. Jakes. I want to say I am a fan. I really do love T.D. Jakes. I actually transcribed one of his sermons one time, 50 pages. But thanks a lot, T.D. Jakes, for Paula White supremacist. Go ahead, Sister Adele.
Mm-hmm. Well, so she's a prosperity, the relationship there is she's a prosperity gospel preacher. And it's worked out well for her. And she was appointed an aide to Trump in the White House. So she's a big deal. But then you still have the older establishment, what I would call the older establishment religious right, which is more Southern Baptist kind of influence. It's not charismatic. People like Tony Perkins. He's not a charismatic preacher. He's a Southern Baptist. Then you have the whole Dominionist movement, which is a charismatic or Pentecostal movement, but that claims that in order to serve God, that Christians are called to be part of the government.
Yeah,
yes.
To dominate society.
And the seven spheres of life.
Right. That goes to what you were saying, Brother Mac, about the dominating spirit that's in there. But please continue, Sister Adele. And do you know by any chance Sarah Diamond? She wrote a book on dominionism, and I think she did outstanding work in this field. But then I didn't see her anymore in this field. But go ahead.
Sarah, at the time she was doing that work, nobody was, I'm sorry about adjusting my screen. I just feel like I'm off. There we go.
Trust and believe.
Off center here. Yeah, anyway. Let's see. There we go. No, I just can't seem to get it quite right.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, so what we see with Sarah Diamond, who was one of the very first people digging around the religious right. And this is really, especially at that time, it was really hard work to do because you would deal with threats you weren't sure how serious they were. And also, at that time, I believe she was writing in the early 90s, you couldn't get taken seriously writing about the religious right. I mean, that was my issue, is that, first of all, mainstream media considered them to be fringe. And then anybody who was really exploring the movement was a journalist really exploring that movement was considered to be as fringe as they considered the movement itself to be. So, I can't speak for why Sarah stopped, left the field for a while, but there are reasons I can imagine just from my own experience.
Well, you do have to keep in mind, and I know, Brother Mac, you could speak to this, that there was a time we have made progress, right? We are talking about, I remember a time when we could not even say the word white supremacy on television.
Right, right.
You would not get an invitation back. Now I got to call Donald Trump a white mediocre man on MSNBC. So, I mean, I think that is emblematic of some progress. And I think that has something to do with everything that we see here, Sister Adele. Please continue and again, we're respectful of your time. So I will give this as much time as you have to give it.
Well, I'm grateful to be able to talk to you and Mac and your listeners about these differences, distinctions, whatever. So I would definitely put, back to Mac's question, I would put Tony Perkins way up there. He's got a massive distribution, email blast distribution. And the Family Research Council does not lack for resources. And I would put Paula White way up there. And it's hard to think about who should weigh in at number 3, because there's this kind of shifting cast of characters, that
put
get
Pat Robertson up there, or is he going out?
Well, I would say that Pat Robertson as a force certainly is way up there, but at this point, in terms of having a robust following, I don't know, because he's on CBN, the network he founded, Christian Broadcasting Network, and has a daily show there. So he probably has a significant following, but it is probably not quite what it was, because he no longer has an organization. Oh, who do you have?
John Hagee.
Oh my goodness. Yes, John Hagee. He definitely was big on selling the prosperity gospel to white congregations, all wrapped up in that, what I call false principles. These high-minded. They're framed in these high-minded principles of conservatism, right? That self-reliance and all this kind of stuff. But that's all just candy coating for a really acrid nougat of bigotry.
Sister Adele, I had no idea who you were. And Ben, I want to thank you so much for bringing this sister on. And I am just absolutely blown away and so impressed with your body of work and the research that you all have done. So thank you so much for sharing and educating me, because I'm learning so much from you. And I'm humbled by your level of expertise on this. And since we ventured into the prosperity preaching and we've spoken about money,
Lord, here we go.
Is there anything around big corporations who have provided resources into the religious right to further their messaging?
Well, I honestly have not delved into that, and that's a great question.
Wow.
I'm going to take that back to the team and see what they... with the Right Wing Watch team, and see what they know about that. But I think what you find, if you want to, I think it's probably a little bit removed. I mean, either you would have rich donors in your church, who get their money that way, and of course that is all shielded from public view, unless you want to claim it, or through the Koch network. So the Koch network. The Koch brothers network, the network they built. People think we're not just talking about Koch Industries, the corporation. The corporation is the source of the funding,
Yes.
But there's this vast network of donor-advised funds and organizations and shell organizations through which money passes, and most of it is from comes through that network from private people whose wealth derives from privately held corporations. Now, why is that important? Because the governance of those corporations is also shielded from public view, and you've got no pesky shareholders to hold you to account. So, for instance, I was looking at in 2013, I was looking at the role of if they're trying to find if there was what kind of role there may have been that the Koch network may have played in some very draconian anti-abortion legislation that
Sister
was
Adele,
being
can I
advanced.
interject? Can I interject
Sure.
just for a point of information so that the audience can understand? When you say Koch Industries, I want them to think of all those 18-wheelers that are driving all around the South
Right.
every single day. Your toilet paper, the tissue, those supplies that you buy at all they are everywhere. I just want people
Yes,
to
and
be
they
sure
have
that can
scarfed
connect.
up all of those corporations, right? They've scarfed up. That was Georgia Pacific, right? That they the paper towel business and Lily paper cups and on. You know, latex. You know, as a fabric, you can't boycott.
Right.
You can't boycott Koch Industries
Right.
because
And literally, when I asked the question, that was one of the exact companies that I had in mind. But, you know, what it appears to me is, again, I'm thinking about the fact that the focus is on the leadership, but you also have to think about who sits in that congregation and what they are.
yeah,
So,
you're right.
you know, when I think about, you know, just the real in-depth look at this, you know, I can see the old congressional hearings where they got the big whiteboard up there and they're showing the family of the mafia and all the tentacles and
Right.
how far it reaches out.
That's right.
And so I'm
That's
just
right.
wondering if there's been any type of work done within you all's research of the tentacles that go not from just those that you focus on and in the pulpit, but then what happens within the members, the very influential and affluent members of their congregation. Like, you know, just assume if a member of the Koch brothers were a part of the flock of one of these leaders, how their tentacles spread out. And so you begin to see that in order to push this type of messaging and be effective, clearly you have to have money. And as they say, when you want to understand any issue, just simply follow the money.
Yeah, well, you know, if I can just finish my thought about the 2013 elections, because I do digress and I'm prone to tangents.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Like it or not.
Like it or not. Go ahead.
So you know the Koch brothers always they frame themselves as libertarians, and they professed to not want government interference in people's lives and not to care about the abortion issue, you know, as something that should be, subject to government, oversight. So that was what they say on paper. And then when you looked at what was going on with this law in Texas, that all of the people who were for the law were also part of Koch network entities or receiving, the support of Koch network entities. I mean, when you talk about the American Legislative Exchange, ALEC
Committee, yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, so there was a lot of ALEC people there. And why would they be investing in these anti-choice evangelical politicians? Well, it's because they've gotten those folks to carry the water for them on the anti-regulatory agenda vis-a-vis business. So in order to keep them along, in order to advance that agenda, they'll sell out anybody. They will sell out anybody. They will let those people sell out anybody and help them do it.
And that's why when Brother Mac, you asked that, when you posed that question, I was like, oh, here we go, because you actually went in a direction that I didn't think you were going to go. And I think, Adele, I think you'll understand when I say this, because I thought you were going to go into the direction of how the prosperity gospel has infiltrated the Black community and in a way neutralized our ability as churches to be organizing institutions to affect actual change. That's what because I thought you were getting
that's
ready.
Fascinating point.
I thought you were getting ready to call out some people and take them to the woodshed, is what I thought. Well, Sister Adele, listen, thank you so much for your time. I would love to have you back again. As to be quite honest with you, this is my wheelhouse, and I love that we can have this level of conversation, because I think it's important that Black churches begin to understand that there is room for them to be active as organizing institutions. Because look at Greg Locke. Look at the liberties that white evangelicals take in the pulpit as it pertains to pushing their political agenda, and we can't even get our voting rights protected because they're afraid of overturning the filibuster. So we have some issues that we have to dig into. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, Ben, let me ask this question, and Sister Locke, if in a perfect world, in your perfect world, or the perfect world of your organization, what would ultimately you like for your body of research to yield? And just from your perspective of all the research that you all are doing, there's always a reason why people want to do what they want to do. And so, for example, many of us in the NAACP said that we long for the day when there'd be no need for the NAACP, because this country would reach that of equality. So in that vein, what would be the perfect outcome from the body of research that you all have done? And again, thank you so very much. I'm so impressed with who you are, and I'm certainly going to keep up with you. And I just find you to be a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much, Sister, for being on the show. But if you could just tell us, what would that perfect world be like for your organization?
Well, first, let me say thank you, and thank you for the brilliant questions. I mean, this has been really, even though we're talking about difficult things, it's really been delightful to be with such well-informed interviewers. And but the perfect world, the perfect world would be, that we again, to follow on to your point, that yes, that there wouldn't be a need for us to be doing this. It's not fun watching 8 hours a day of video clips of these guys screaming and stuff. And that people would not be harmed by people posing as religious figures. So I think that in a perfect world, I want peace, love, and understanding. I want equality among all people. I mean, I want what you would expect I would want, right? But at the very least, I would like the American public to understand how the political landscape works in the United States, and where the levers of power are, and why is this minority of people afforded such great power? Because they are the minority. They're the minority. The coalition is the coalition is the majority. The people-centered coalition is the majority.
So it would be naive to think that there is no intersection between religion and politics.
Yes, it is. It truly is. As long as you have people, there is politics. Wherever you have people, there is politics, right? And unfortunately, some people institutionalize that in their religious institutions in ways that are harmful to people. But I do believe wherever there is people, there is politics, and it may be formal or informal. So we always have to have our internal observers working as well. While we're advancing our own cause.
But Ben,
no, hey, Brother Mac, I said we take as much time as we need. Help yourself.
I know I need this question. So given that, help me understand, what does in its quintessential form, what is separation of church and state?
Well, the actual wording of the First Amendment is Congress shall enact no law, singular. Congress shall right, shall enact no law respecting an institution of religion. So, and because that is so broad, right, it's subject to all kinds of court challenges whenever any kind of regulation is imposed that would affect a religious institution. But freedom of religion should be freedom to believe what you want, even if it's awful. Freedom to believe what you want, to preach, to all of that. But if you're going to accept a nonprofit tax exempt exemption, I mean, that thing is sticky, and I think that we really are going to have to look at some kind of policy implications around those exemptions and how to regulate them better.
No, I got an unpopular opinion there. I bet you. What's that unpopular
pastors gonna
love me. They're gonna love me up until the point where I say maybe we need to look at that 501c3 status because the way of white evangelicals are using it. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so the reason why it was so, and my understanding was exactly what you said. And the reason it was so troubling to me because it harkened back to thoughts of what Brother Ben introduced with us of the attacks that came on Jeremiah Wright. Mm-hmm. So that's why, and like you said, it now becomes so broad that it could be used in any way that it wants to be used. Thus, we introduced the concept of racism into that, even into that particular amendment.
Right. And its interpretation is now up to a Supreme Court that, that is majority right-wing.
So you stack the courts and you can get away with your own interpretation of the Constitution, even if it's not
constitutional. And they have been doing that for years, as you know. I don't need to tell you that, but, Benjamin, but yes, that's exactly what they've been doing.
Yeah, and we spoke about that earlier on the show with Georgia Fort, where that is, part of what has been the plan, and it certainly got accelerated under Trump because Trump has boldly said that he'd love for the Supreme Court to be able to step in presidential elections. But again, in order to make it to the Supreme Court, you first have to go through the lower courts, which is why it is so important when you start looking at voting, when whoever it is that you elect, now they begin to fill these lower courts with people that think like them, act like them. And then now you come to the highest court in the land. And if it's stacked in a way that could ultimately lead to the overturn of Roe v. Wade, amongst other things.
Voting rights, the voting rights stuff. I mean, they already gutted the Voting Rights
Shelby
Act.
versus Holder. Yeah.
Right. But there will be more voting rights cases coming up because of what's going on in the states trying to restrict voting rights.
And then when you all frame it, Brother Mac and Sister Adele, the way y'all framed it, then it sends shivers down my spine when I consider the last appointment that Donald Trump got in Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes,
who is the quintessential harbinger of Handmaid's Tale.
I agree.
So Sister Adele, give me your perspective of when President Obama had that position of being able to nominate for the Supreme Court. Just give me your viewpoints of what you think happened and why he and the Democratic Party didn't fight tooth and nail to get that appointment. Ultimately, negative 45, who we refer to as Trump, made that appointment. So give me your thoughts behind the way that you think President Obama and the entire Democratic Party handled blowing that nomination.
Well, I mean, I really do think Obama was up against something of a brick wall there, right? In the form of Mitch McConnell, and who is the Senate Majority Leader. Was the Senate Majority Leader at that time. So there were a lot of institutional blocks. Now, how do you handle something like that? I mean, I think that you find that because liberals and Democrats tend to have belief in the system, we seek to solve things through the system, right? So I am not at all, I mean, I'm really not hip enough on this whole thing to offer a true critique, but I do know that in general, that because we trust in the system, at least to a certain extent, we tend to work the levers of the system as it exists rather than breaking norms, going outside the system, which is what Trump did all the time, the established norms of, media relations or whatever. Or, changing the shape of the system, which is like such a huge and overwhelming undertaking when you're thinking about your next election 2 years from now. So I think these are really important and hard questions we need to address and really have some working groups come together, which, happens all the time with regard to political associations and whatnot, putting forth an agenda. But we really do need some, I think, real outside the box thinking on this, because when stuff is entrenched institutionally or in a mindset that assumes everybody's going to play according to the rules, it can end up being very not a great approach.
What I love about our team here is that there's a nice balance. Brother Mac, you always point out we should take action. What kind of action can we take? And I think that being in the back of my mind and listening to what you just said, Sister Adele, I think I have a proposition of how we can fight back. And we can obviously work on the details off screen. But I propose that we give some guidelines to black pastors, showing them what they can and cannot do based on what we're only going to do what evangelicals do. We'll do one for one, and we will respond based on issues. Not that I'm a black pastor, but I know of quite a few. Respond based on issues that are pertinent to our community. And I imagine the kind of response that will come from evangelicals. They will flip their lid. If there were 1,000 Jeremiah Wrights who are knowledgeable about what they can and cannot say in their pulpit as it pertains to the liberation of all people in the global South, as well as American South. I digress, but that's just something off the top of my head. We can obviously talk about that. Thank you so much for being here. This was a wonderful conversation.
It's been my great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sister, thank you so much. And welcome to the family.
Absolutely, because we're going to have you back. There's no way we're not going to. We hope that you can come back as often as you have.
I would love to. This is wonderful.
Hey,
yes, thank you.
Let me say this. In the world of R&B music, you have now become our Tina Marie.
Oh, no.
Dum, dum, I love it. We'll be back. We're going to have more Like It or Not after this. We're going into the after party. We're going to hang out because it has been a long week. We got some Black Joy, got DJ Exclusive. This is a whole family of content that's going on here. Like It or Not, we'll be back right after this.
Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay tuned. After party starting. Actually already in the after party, but y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong, and it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no. I know it's hard to be polite, and it's easy being petty. My mama used to tell me, God,
you afraid of bees. Love you too. Happy Friday.
It's either prison or a grave. That's what everybody tell me. Man, life ain't a beach, it's a female dog. I'm staying 10 toes down, though I still might fall. Oh yeah, now I done came through, knocking pieces off your walls. Loving people who persecute you, it's still a tough light up on my path and a lamp under my feet. I know my faith strong, but my flesh still kinda weak. When that victory be looking like the verge of defeat, and I feel that disrespect, tell me turn my other cheek and say sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong, and it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. Ooh. you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, no, no. No, you just can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No. See, it's hard to be polite. It's easy being petty. Mama used to tell me, gotta use you when you're ready. Cause I ain't working on my own timing. Ain't got no diamonds on me, but I stay shining. Yeah, yeah.
Marcus is not really the internet. If anything, I'm on Wi-Fi because all these Thunderbolt ports. So I gotta get a USB to Thunderbolt or Ethernet cord and hook all that stuff up so I'm hardwired.
I know my faith strong, but my flesh still kinda weak. When that victory be looking like the verge of defeat, and I feel like disrespect, help me turn my other cheek and say sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words can't hurt me. No, you just can't hurt me. No, I ain't been right more than I've been wrong, and it still can't hurt me. No, it just can't hurt me. No. Hurt me, no, no, no.
I'm in sync with the earth. 10 toes deep, flower child from the turf. I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'ma ride for the squad. Lot of ties in the hearse. I've been on a vibe, kinda hard to describe. I'm in between, I'm good and it's fine, but I'm tired of the grind. Then I come alive in the night to realize I'm in the middle of the time of my life. I'm never so packed for the stack, never lied on the rap. Got a bag from the way that I write it. Queen looking Tyson, do that ass survive, doing 80 to the house. Then I hit it to the sky, change haters on a tirade. Talking to the crib in the face, be still like that hate stuff fade. We all want the same, we all want a meal in the safe. I wanna live like I'm trying to reach enlightenment. Drill spill from my lips, feel bent from the bit. Take a sip till I pass out. Try and get grit, but it don't make sense. Cause you can lose life on this fast route. Yeah, turn thoughts to a cash cow. I might flip that to the glass house. I don't need the accolades, I'm in love with the chase. I just wanna eat.
All right, y'all, let's get back to it. More like it or not. Learn right now, y'all.
Hey. I'm so glad y'all can't see me. if they could see me, James, DJ Exclusive, they would be like, there's something wrong. Well, I think people know there's something wrong with me anyway, so I digress. James, DJ Exclusive, it is Friday. It is no longer... I miss my sister because Rebecca really, she got the goods on the Evangelique Church. And so Rebecca, shout out to Rebecca. I know she'll be having a good weekend, and we'll see her on Monday. How y'all doing? This is the after party.
Hey, man, cool in the game. Bubba, you always keeping it live. But, Brother Ben, I got to tell you, man, I learned so much from Sister Adele, and I had no idea of your depth of knowledge in that whole, in that genre, man. So it was just very insightful to me. So thank you so much for bringing that sister on, man.
Oh, no, man. I want to bring her on and more people like her because we talk about it like, James, we cover this all the time. Like these clips from these evangelical pastors, they what do we call Billy Ray Jesus? Like matter of fact, I wish we had the greatest hits of how we've covered it because we've covered these people pretty good. The Billy Ray Jesus, the what was his thing? Our Hero Sound, and then we had and then what do we call them? The evangelicals, because they really, I mean, they guise themselves as good God-fearing Christians, but they are really out here pushing some sadistic, evil stuff.
Hey, man, so listen, help me understand this, because trust and believe, I'm in the total dark about the relationship between T.D. Jakes and Paula White. So help us understand that. Hey, baby, we're in the after party.
We in that. You're right. I mean, it is what it is. T.D. Jakes put her. Actually, I hope we're still public because I hope that. I mean, because honestly, you know, there was a time when you saw all these white churches being built off of black congregations and off of black styles and black intonations, and the way, you know, Paula White basically is just a remixed whitewashed sample of Juanita Bynum, if you ask me. James, you know this world, James. I mean, and I wish Rebecca was here. I know she's doing her thing this weekend, but like. Yeah, when you grow up in the church, you see this stuff like you can't help. My dad was a pastor for 40 years, and in his last station, he was dealing with white evangelicals in the Southern Baptist Church, and let's just say it was the roots go deep in terms of the white supremacy.
No, I get that, but you made the comment, thank you, T.D. Jakes, for Paula White. So,
oh yeah,
did he? Was it an Oprah kind of thing? Oprah brings you on her show, promotes your book, and all of a sudden you're America's bestseller. I mean,
that's perfect. That's exactly. I think that's the best way. T.D. Jakes is to Paula White what Oprah Winfrey is to Dr. Phil. That's perfect.
So T.D. Jakes brought her in. She gained celebrity and then took off.
She didn't take off, but she took off with Donald Trump. And she became, I wish we had some B-roll here of Paula White being the spiritual advisor to Donald Trump and laying on hands and calling for African angels to come and intercede on behalf of Donald Trump. Y'all remember that crap, man? Like, it's been a wild couple of years here. And the evangelicals have jumped off the deep end, going into, like, they even had a golden bust of Donald Trump. Like, they literally have golden images at this point. And then they still claim to be the bearers of Christianity or something. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that I loved about what Sister Adele said, when I asked the question, did the religious right get an injection of boldness as a result of Trump? And she said, look, they were always on the leash, but Trump unleashed the dogs. It was something that it was very clear to me that happened. But to hear it from a perspective of a person who's doing research in this arena and to see how it got amped up as a result. And this is why I keep saying, the Republican Party has now taken, that playbook they used to have, it was leashed. That new playbook, based on on negative 45's behavior and success with that behavior, it's just absolutely unleashed a new level of tyranny within the Republican Party as a result of negative 45.
Oh, yeah. And this is what they preach. We had a fourth clip. Let's play this fourth clip because, we had the work. We had the clip already cut. And then, James, we have a lot of clips that apparently have been being dropped and we haven't been collected them. But I believe we have that rectified. So we have those clips as well. But before we go into those.
There's 12 minutes left. Don't do me like that, brother. But keep going.
What they said, but they said
Hey, man,
it's 10:30. I'm still in corporate America, brother.
Hey, Bubba, let's treat it like speed dating, man. Just bring the clip on, 1 or 2 words, and we move on.
No, Dr. Mac, I'm good. You ain't gonna speed through my goddamn clips. We don't speed through nobody else's motherfucking clips. We ain't gonna speed through motherfucking mine. Thank you.
Hey, man, my cousin's listening, bro. Mama, but yesterday, what did you say about Mama Gwen? You told Mama Gwen something yesterday that I was like, oh, I would have got, my mama would have popped me. What you say on air yesterday about Mama Gwen? Something like you told her to be something, but y'all relationship is y'all relationship. But man, my cousins are listening. But that said, we can hit as many clips as we possibly can. We can extend the time if necessary. If not, we can pick them up next week.
Brother Ben, like I said, I'm still corporate America, so 10:30 is the call time for the brother.
No problem, brother.
Y'all.
No problem. If necessary, if you need to get out of here a little bit early to get a head start on that, man, it's a Friday. It's beautiful outside, and a matter of fact, as soon as we're done here, I got to hit the streets because I'm getting back out here to cover this story about Amazon. Because I'm telling you, we have heard about we've read articles about these Amazon drivers having to urinate in their trucks. But when I tell you to hear them describe what they go through in that process. So as soon as I'm done here, I got a couple of more interviews that I'm going to hit. So trust me, brother, I understand. If you got to get out of here early, get that sunshine, get that thing going. That said, let's hold that last event. We have plenty of examples of how evil evangelicals are. Dwayne, run me the first clip of some Black Joy, whatever you have in the tank. Let's run it.
What's with the Delta variant? It's just COVID, but cooler. Do something else. 2020 already did what you're doing. Do something else. She told me to do it. I damn sure did. Why? Because these humans keep testing me. They don't know I'm tougher than a $2 steak. Just leave them alone. They about to see more variants than Loki in the TVA. Should I go? No. You need to stop this Delta thing. The hell he does. Why won't you listen to reason? Who the hell made you boss of everything? I do. I made all of this, so I'm the boss, the CEO, the president. Well, I didn't vote for you. Guys, just do something else. Jesus, tap dancing Christ.
Jesus dancing Christ.
Man, that he said the what did he say? I heard one of those lines I heard before. Who is this guy?
I forgot his name. Somebody on TikTok, you know.
Is it just another man? We got so many talented black brothers and sisters and non-gender conforming individuals on TikTok. Run the next clip for me, Dwayne.
Bitches in the future?
Good night, everyone. This is Wheel of Fortune, Joe.
Bitcoin is the future.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm sorry to the listening audience because you can't see it. Oh man. Wait, you got to describe it. Wait. Describe what we just saw to the listening audience, because Mike.
That was Wheel of Fortune. Of course, it said it looked like it was going to be bitches in the future. And that was a pretty good guess. But yeah, Bitcoin is the future, not bitches is the future. What, man? Like, you already got the H out there and the E. How do you get bitches in the future? He's like, all right. Pat Sage like, all right, y'all. Good night.
Yeah, that's when it's time to sign off. Hey, wait. That reminds me of anybody watch South Park? Cartman. With the episode when Cartman's dad, or one of them, Stan's dad, and the word was it was anyway. No, I can't say that one without Brother Mac coming at me. It involves the N word. Run the next clip, Dwayne. What's the next clip?
Belligerent passenger causing sheer chaos in the air. And it got so bad that flight attendants had to duct tape the man to his seat. Ever since masks were required on airplanes, flight attendants say that their work has become downright dangerous.
Now understand something. I'm a flight attendant. That means I attend the flights. Sometimes our job has us attending to crazy people. If you push us too far, you're going to have to attend this ass whooping. You see, because on this particular flight, I'm sitting in the jump seat and I'm just looking at him like the damn fool. He's spitting and cussing and going crazy. I say, that's enough. I got up and I walked over there. And by the way, this man smelled like a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, 4 shots of Everclear alcohol, and regret. So I know something's about to go down. At this point, he touching all over my coworker's breast. And where he f***ed up at is when he touched my titties. Because I don't say that. So what I did is I took out the duct tape. I said, he got scared, start stuttering, say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. I said, yeah, we about to mummify your ass now, boy. So we wrapped him up. Better than any Christmas present you ever see. He won't be coming on no more Frontier flights at all.
Say when he messed up, he touched my breast. What the hell? Bye, y'all. I'm gone. I got to jump off.
Hey, man, do your thing. Have a great weekend, DJ Exclusive, man. Have a great weekend. We got at least one more. I think we got one more, don't we, Dwayne? Run the next one, man.
This guy shocks the whole gas station with his singing.
Hey, Bear. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Casey and JoJo, really?
Of course.
Woo! I don't even know if I remember all the lyrics. Some new people in here tonight.
They all came to see you.
I will never find another.
Oh, you know what? That's right. Let's kill it. Let's actually. Thank you for that reminder, Dwayne. That one's not even worth. I mean, I'm sure the moment was amazing, but you know, YouTube and that algorithm will shut us down in a hot second. Brother Mac, I appreciate you hanging out and watching my six through the entire episode. Georgia Ford, Rebecca Zor is out today. DJ Exclusive just stepped away. He's been with us through the entire episode. What you got? What do you? Where are you going to play some? Well, don't say it because they will show up. But you're going to play some golf today.
No, man, I'm gonna chill for the weekend. I'm still putting work in on the All Women's Black Heritage Day 5 calendar, so I'm gonna just take it real easy. Take it real easy this weekend.
Well, that's good, man. I just want to, I'd be remiss. Today is August 6th. Am I right? Let me look at the date. My eyes are a little blurry. Today is the birthday of my father. He would have been 77 years old today. Percy McInnes Dixon. And he was not one of those pastors who got a lot of money. He organized boycotts. He organized protests. He preached. I grew up listening to the liberation gospel because of my dad. And Brother Mac, he would have been 77 years old today. And I don't want to leave, but it's my dad. So, and it's my show. So I'll
hey man, happy heavenly birthday, Dad. Because it was never about your savings account. It was about saving souls.
That's right. And that's how he died. And I've been wanting to tell his story for a while. But my father, whose birthday would have been today, he would have been 77 years old. He died coming back from a Bible study that he was giving to homeless people. He had picked up the homeless members of the neighborhood up in the church van and taken them to Bible study, and they prayed and they read the Bible, and they went the unhoused, right? The unhoused, they went back onto the bus, and it took them too long to come out from the sanctuary, and he had died right there in the sanctuary. So, that's one of the reasons I got into all of this, because, I just saw a huge discrepancy in the things that a lot of preachers it's not just my dad's story. There's a lot of preachers who die right in the pulpit. So anyway,
Brother Ben, let me say this. Let me offer this thought to you from a warrior standpoint, as it applies to your father, because this is what I heard, and it ties into what we spoke about today. Your father either could have came home with his Bible, or he went home on his Bible. And for a man of God, what better way to go than on your Bible? You feel me?
Yeah, man. Do you watch Star Trek?
No, I don't.
Oh, man, you got to watch.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it this way. I've watched Star Trek. I'm not necessarily a Trekkie, right?
Yeah.
But, again, I think that the reason it resonates with me to either come back with your shield or on your shield or whatever it is. In the case of your father was a man of the cloth. That Bible was his shield. Now, he can come home every day with that Bible, or he can go home.
That's right.
Eternally on his Bible. And so whenever somebody would be willing to die for what they believe in, or die in the midst of their passion, what a great, what better way is there to live? What better way is there to live? And so, again, this is the first time I'm really hearing about your father, and to know that it was him doing what he was called to do is when he was called home.
Yeah.
Being from that perspective, bro, you couldn't have lived a better life, a more wholesome life, right?
Yeah, man, and I have a blessed family all the way around the board, man. What I will share next week some stuff about our family as we get something. It's just and I see these stories replicated across the country. One of the reasons I like Brother Anthony Galloway, who always is on the clock with Georgia Ford. I love his work so much because he sees those patterns. And then Brother Mac, you've been talking about these variables, because it's the variables, as those variables change, that really determine the conversation and how we get we had a fabulous conversation today. There's so many things I want to discuss, but the reason I asked you about Star Trek was because you, brother, remind me of Worf. You remind me of a warrior, Klingon warrior, and he would have said that my father is among the honored dead in Sto-Vo-Kor. So shout out to everyone who stuck with us through the entire episode. Thanks for hanging out. It is a beautiful day. Turns out I'm better off. I am actually really good in the streets, Brother Mac. I forgot that I'm better in the streets than I am behind a camera, but I should have known that considering who my daddy was. So I'm about to go hit these streets and talk to these boys and these sisters and non-gender conforming individuals from Amazon, so we could take care of our people as they work in this capitalistic system. That's all I got, man. You got anything else? You ready to get out of here?
Hey, look, man, without question, the only thing I would say to you, remind you, encourage you as to all of us, man, just stay safe because, again, this new variant is far more easily transmissible than its predecessor. Stay safe out there in the streets.
Do you know what's amazing? Thank you for saying that because I want to give a shout out to this city that I won't name because I don't need people knowing where I live. But turns out that my neighbors have been creating bubbles where there's entire plazas where they require the vaccine. And it's just what they're doing is their private business. And so in my backyard, as I'm doing this, I'm able to do it inside of a bubble that is keeping me pretty damn safe, man. So we're doing good.
Trust and believe this. The party of negative 45, they can say what they so desire. They can place their stake in the ground on being, anti-mask, don't care about the vaccine. But trust and believe, this same capitalistic society, news reports just came out today about United Airlines requiring
that
all of their employees, 67,000 employees, be fully vaccinated. The other airlines don't follow suit. So you're going to begin to see corporate America understand, because again, as Dr. Fauci has stated to us, the uptick of the new variant is ahead of where COVID was. And if we remember the devastation of COVID, one could only imagine what this new, and they spoke about this new mutation of why it's mutating and the variables behind it. And part of that, the reason it's able to get longer and stronger is because so many of us are not becoming vaccinated. Or if we did become vaccinated, now all of a sudden we go out with that vaccine in us, that virus learns to cope and how to defeat even the vaccine. So we just have to be extremely careful so that we can ultimately get out of this. But with all of that said, brother, the body of work that you've done and the level of insightfulness that you brought to this conversation with Sister Adele, it was a side of you I had no idea about, Brother Ben, and I'm so appreciative for the depth of knowledge, your level of expertise on that, and just everybody on the show, Bubba, Dwayne, David, Sister Ford, and you mentioned Brother Galloway, man. I just find that brother so incredibly cerebral when we speak to him. The insight that he brings into it. So, and without question, Sister Noah, Sister Rebecca, just absolute incredible.
I missed them because Brother Mac, I really enjoyed sitting back and listening to Rebecca and Anoa do their thing the other day. I really feel like we're our conversation has suffered because they had to take some time and do what they have to do. But I definitely understand that, and I appreciate. I just want to say something. I want to close with this, Dwayne. You can get ready to drop some music. Brother Mac, when you first came on, the very first episode that you came on, you said that the show fed your soul. That's what I've been trying to go for the last couple. We've gone through a lot of transitions, a lot. We've had a lot of ups and downs with the show. But the number one thing that we've been going for is a level of soul food, to make sure that when we leave here that we actually are leaving better than the way we came, because we got a lot of work to do, and the work is right outside of our doors. The work's not on the national level. The work is literally right outside of your door, speaking to someone at the gas station, but please wear your mask because we are in the Delta Plus variant. And we're dealing with people who have lost all sense of reason. Brutish beasts have lost all sense of reason because they will send their children into this pandemic for the sake of capitalism, and they sure as hell will send our children. So our work has to begin right now outside of our doors. And I want to thank all of you, Brother Mac, especially all the people on this show who make this possible, because the Benjamin Dixon Show is not possible without Georgia Fortin on the clock. It's not possible without Rebecca Azor and Like It or Not. It's not possible without DJ Exclusive, and it's not possible with our historian, Brother Carl Mack. We'll see everybody
that's
Monday.
The fun part, but Ben, let me say,
man, Brother Mack, I'm trying to go home, man.
I know, but I want to say this in closing. Listen, when I sat there and listened to Sister Anoa and Sister,
man,
and I made the statement, I've always said that I would love to be a black man in a room with sisters and just hear the way they think, what their perspective is. And it was one of the most, it was one of those opportunities that fed my soul. And so when they asked, Brother Mac, what do you think? I just wanted to listen to them. I just found the two of those sisters to be engaged in that level of conversation. Incredibly insightful and so beautiful. So powerful. We can get
that's
out of
definitely worth that's definitely worth every bit of minute, because just listen to the sound, even the very sound of their names, Rebecca Azor and Noah Chunga. You're gonna get some truth to power listening to those two sisters. So shout out to them, and special shout out to the entire team behind the scene that makes this possible. But back to the soul food, you said that the first time you're on the show that your soul was fed, and I feel like our souls were fed. And so shout out to TD Jakes. I'm sure I got a couple of tweets out there and stuff, but I actually was a fan of his, because he had this one sermon where he said, "Did not our hearts burn within as we traveled along the way?" It's been a good episode, folks. I'm looking forward to Monday. We'll see you next time.
And I know that it's a